It's been over 25 years now since I began my work on the low-skill equilibrium in Britain and how it compared with its competitors around the world. Over that time, Britain has made a tremendous progress in many aspects of its higher ed system. If you look at the number of university graduates, it went from having a very small percent getting a degree to now being above the OECD average, and doing it with a very low attrition rate and actually managing to encourage more people from lower socioeconomic groups to go. At the other side of the education system, there's now everyone staying on in school till 18, a dramatic difference from 25 years ago, and many more young people entering apprentices. Where Britain still faces a challenge, though, is what we call the middle skills gap, or the kinds of jobs that demand young people to go on beyond 18, get some additional technical, vocational, or qualifications to fill what accounts for nearly 30% of the jobs in the economy. These jobs like technicians or advanced manufacturing jobs or healthcare jobs, which require that blend of good academic skills but also that applied learning. And these are jobs that are only going to increase in the years ahead. The projections are that by 2022, that up to a third of those jobs may need to be filled because many of the people there are aging out of the workforce, and we're going to need replacements, as well as new technologies growing in areas like information technology, biotechnology, and healthcare. Comparative work by the OECD highlights the gap that the UK faces in this area, where the supply of people with advanced technical qualifications in the UK is significantly lower than its competitors. We're also seeing evidence of this challenge in skill shortages that are persistent in areas like advanced manufacturing or some of the healthcare fields. So what options exist to address this middle skills gap? Well, I'm going to draw in the remaining time on my experience from the US, where I spend most of my time, not because the US is the ideal solution for the UK. In fact, it faces many similar challenges to what we see in Britain. But the reason to look, I think, to the US is because it also faces a similar institutional environment with a similar kind of market-based economy where there's a big reliance on higher education institutions to provide skills, as opposed to, say, looking at the Germanic systems, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, which are world leaders in providing these technical skills, but where the research suggests it's really hard for the UK to emulate their successes because it requires so many other elements of the system that are missing. So what are types of options that we might think of that could be tried or are already underway in the UK to address this middle skills gap? I just want to conclude by pointing to a few. First would be to think about ways to get more young people interested in these technical fields, in computer programming and other things, particularly young girls who often are not given the chance, the opportunities to be attracted to this early in their school careers. And so I would point to things like the Minecraft website that has come out of Sweden, where you're now seeing thousands of young girls getting on and doing coding, but they're doing it in the context of a fun electronic game, which they just seem to enjoy rather than feeling like it's hard work. Or the growing movement of maker spaces, where you're seeing the opportunity for any young person or old person who has an idea for a new kind of product or a new artwork to go in and produce that on a 3D printer and a laser machine in a very inexpensive way. So a chance to go from idea to reality very quickly. I'd also suggest looking at other models like the US community college system, which has a lot of similarities to colleges of further ed in the UK, but which has the advantage that they have many more opportunities for students to go from their first 2-year degrees on to higher ed. And so it attracts people in to pursuing those sort of intermediate or technical skills. Another model that I think is worth looking at is the very successful universities like Northeastern or Drexel that use cooperative education, where they've been able to combine significant spells in employment with academic study, ensuring that what young people are learning is really going to be relevant in the workplace. The UK has had a long tradition of this through sandwich courses and through foundation and HND degrees, but unfortunately that's been the part of higher ed that's been declining. And so I think that really needs looking at to think about what can be done to further strengthen that going forward. There's also been a lot of focus recently on apprenticeships, and I think what we're seeing there is a big increase in numbers, but unfortunately too much of that at a fairly low level. I think the Richards Review has pointed to some very interesting ideas for how this might be addressed, getting employers more involved and focusing on these higher and intermediate level skills that are so valuable. The final point I would point to is the need to think about this at the local and regional level, or what I have called high-skill ecosystems. So identifying particular areas where you have a real competitive strength, whether it's in pharmaceuticals and biotech or advanced manufacturing or transportation or other infrastructure, and bringing together the education providers, the employers, as well as the institutions to really build those sets of skills together that will help them to continue to succeed in the global economy.